Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we will continue our lesson from Mukhtasar Ul Qudoori of Imam Qudoori rahimahullah from the chapter of purification, Tahara. We will cover those things that invalidate one's wudu. So Imam Qudoori rahimahullah states, وَالْمَعَانِ النَّاقِضَةُ لِلْوُضُوءِ, and those matters that invalidate the wudu. Ma'ani is the plural of ma'na. Ma'na means matter, ma'ani, matters. So those things that invalidate one's wudu, كُلُّ مَا خَرَجَ مِنَ السَّبِيلَيْنِ, everything that exits from the two passages. So here ma is am, everything that exits from the two passages will invalidate the wudu. Okay. Normally urine exits from the front passage and feces and stool exits from the back passage. But other than this, if it's stones or worms, it will invalidate one's wudu. If it's blood, it will invalidate the wudu. So everything that exits from both passages will invalidate one's wudu. Sahib Nurul Idah has mentioned Rihul Qubul, air that may exit from the front passage, it doesn't invalidate the wudu. Other than this, whatever exits from both passages will invalidate the wudu. وَالدَّمُ, and blood, وَالْقَيْحُ, pus, وَالصَّدِيدُ, serum, إِذَا خَرَجَ مِنَ الْبَدَنِ, when it exits from the body, فَتَجَاوَزَ, and it flows إِلَى مَوْضِعٍ, to such a place, يَلْحَقُهُ حُكْمُ التَّطْهِيرِ, that is joined with the rule of purification. Okay, so here the author has mentioned blood, pus and serum. Okay, so if one started to bleed, after the blood becomes apparent, either it will flow from its position or it will remain still. Okay, so after the blood becomes apparent, or the pus or serum, okay, it will either remain in its position or it will flow. If it flows, the wudu will become invalid. Okay, and if an area if one has a wound on an area, if an area is wounded, one is not obliged to wash that area. One is not obliged to wash that area, but the area around that wound, one must wash it. For example, the arm, it's fard to wash the arm in wudu. Let's say before the elbow, one hurt himself and a wound appeared on that area. Now one is not obliged to wash the wound, but the area around the wound, below the elbow, he must wash it, because we mentioned before that from the elbow, from the fingertips all the way up, including the elbows, all of this area must be washed in wudu once. Okay, it is fard. So the area around the wound, the surrounding area around the wound must be washed. However, if one started to bleed and the blood, it flowed to the area that must be washed, okay, it moved to the area that must be washed in wudu, the wudu will become invalid. So this is what the author is telling us. إِذَا خَرَجَ مِنَ الْبَدَنِ, when the blood or pus or serum, when it exited مِنَ الْبَدَنِ, from the body, فَتَجَاوَزَ, and it flowed إِلَى مَوْضِعٍ, to such a place, يَلْحَقُهُ حُكْمُ التَّطْهِيرِ, that was joined with the rule of purification, حُكْمُ التَّطْهِيرِ. Okay, then the wudu will become invalid. Okay, but if after becoming apparent the blood or the pus or serum, if it remains still, if it didn't flow, then the wudu will not become invalid. Okay, it will remain valid. وَالْقَيْءُ, and vomiting, إِذَا كَانَ مِلْءَ الْفَمِ, when it is a mouthful. Mil'ul fam, mouthful. Okay, so the author, what does he mean by mouthful? Such a vomit that is hard to control, it comes out suddenly. Okay, one cannot control it except with difficulty. Okay, so it's difficult to control, it comes out suddenly. Such a vomit will invalidate one's wudu. So such a vomit is known as mil'ul fam, mouthful. So wal qay'u idha kana mil al fami, and vomiting if it is a mouthful. One nawmu, and sleep. Sleeping also invalidates the wudu, but there are conditions. Okay. In reality, if you look at it, sleeping shouldn't invalidate one's wudu. When one sleeps, apparently he's not urinating or he's not defecating. But because when one sleeps, he is unaware regarding the fact if he has broken wind or not. Those things that invalidate one's wudu, they are not made apparent to him. He doesn't know if those things have occurred or not. Okay, this matter is hidden from him. So due to this, the ulama state that sleeping invalidates the wudu. But there are certain positions. If one sleeps in those positions, his wudu will become invalid. Okay, and the author will mention those positions. But the usul is, the ulama mention, if one slept in such a position that caused his joints to become loose, his wudu will become invalid, because there is a high risk that he will break wind. Okay, and this is the lying down position, lying on his stomach or on his back, okay, or reclining with one of the buttocks off the ground, or lying down. So these positions will invalidate, sleeping in these positions will invalidate the wudu, because one's joints will become loose and there is a high risk that he will break wind. Okay. So the author states, one nawmu muttaji'an. Ittija, this is lying down, so lying down on one's stomach. Ittija, lying down on one's stomach or on one's back. Aw muttaki'an. Ittika, this is reclining, so maybe reclining on one's shoulder, okay, with one of the buttocks off the ground. So even in this position, the wudu will become invalid. Aw mustanidan. So istinad is leaning against something, against a wall or a support, or for example a tree. Aw mustanidan ila shay'in, leaning against something. Law uzila, that if it was to be removed, la saqata anhu, the lying person, the sleeping person would fall down, okay, due to the support being removed. La saqata, okay, he would collapse, he would fall down. So if one was leaning against something, okay, and his bottom was firmly pressed against the ground, his wudu will break. If the support, if it was to be removed, he would fall down, meaning this sleeping person has gone into deep sleep, so much so that if the support was to be removed, he would collapse. Okay, but if his sleep was not such, okay, and the support was removed and he awoke before he collapsed, his wudu will not become invalid. Okay, and sleeping with both of the buttocks pressed against the ground doesn't invalidate the wudu, because one, his joints will not become loose when he sleeps in this position. But the ulama do state, if he goes into deep sleep, so much so that there was a person near him and he called out his name, he called out the sleeping person's name, and the sleeping person didn't respond to him due to falling into deep sleep, then the ulama state his wudu will become invalid. Okay, but if he's sleeping, he hasn't gone into deep sleep, both of his buttocks are firmly pressed against the ground, then his wudu will not become invalid. Same with sleeping in the salah. If one sleeps in the salah and he has control over his body, he's gone to sleep in the qiyam position, standing position, but he has control over his body, he hasn't collapsed, his wudu will not become invalid, because he has not gone into deep sleep, he still has control over his body. But if he goes into deep sleep and he collapses, then obviously his wudu will become invalid. If one sleeps in the sajda position, in sujood, prostration, his wudu will not become invalid. But if he loses control over his body, his position becomes such of a lady, his position becomes such that it's against the sunnah, meaning his stomach becomes low to the ground and his forearms, they become flat, they touch the ground, okay, then his wudu will become invalid. The sunnah position is to keep the stomach high above the ground, not lowered, not low to the ground. The sunnah is to keep the forearms above the ground, lifted from the ground. So if his position becomes such that it's against the sunnah, like that of a lady, then his wudu will become invalid. Okay. So if he sleeps in sujood and his position is still it's still in accordance with the sunnah, then his wudu will not become invalid. وَالْغَلَبَةُ عَلَى الْعَقْلِ بِالْإِغْمَاءِ. And if he's overcome, if his intellect is overcome bil-ighma, by fainting, wal-junun, or insanity. So if this person, he loses his intellect due to fainting, or if he goes mad, he loses his sanity, if he goes insane, his wudu will become invalid. Why? Like I mentioned before, when one's sleeping, he's not aware if he has broken wudu or not. If any of those things have occurred that invalidates one's wudu. Okay. Same with fainting and going insane. When one faints or when one goes insane, he's not in his senses. He doesn't know what's going on around him. So in this case, he will not know if any of those things have occurred that invalidate one's wudu. So due to this, we will say his wudu has become invalid. وَالْقَهْقَهَةُ فِي كُلِّ صَلَاةٍ ذَاتِ رُكُوعٍ وَسُجُودٍ. وَالْقَهْقَهَةُ فِي كُلِّ صَلَاةٍ ذَاتِ رُكُوعٍ وَسُجُودٍ. قَهْقَهَ. قَهْقَهَ is laughing out loud. So قَهْقَهَ is laughing out loud. ضحك is smiling. ضاد ها كاف. ضحك is laughing, and laughing in such a manner that one hears his own voice. Hears the sound of his laughter, and no one else near him hears the sound of his laughter. He causes his own self to hear the sound of his laughter. And tabassum is smiling. Okay, tabassum is smiling. Tabassum. So the first two, qahqaha and dhihk, invalidate the salah. Qahqaha invalidates the salah, laughing out loud and causing other people to hear the sound of the laughter. This not only does it invalidate the salah, but it also invalidates one's wudu. Okay, if he laughed out loud, so loud that not only did he hear the sound of his laughter, but the people near him heard the sound of his laughter. So his salah will become invalid and his wudu will become invalid. And dhihk, if he laughed and he heard the sound of his own laughter, the people near him didn't hear the sound of his laughter, this will invalidate his salah, not his wudu, just his salah. And smiling, neither does it invalidate the salah and wudu. So it doesn't invalidate the salah and wudu. So smiling doesn't invalidate the salah, neither does it invalidate the wudu. Qahqaha invalidates the salah and wudu. Dhihk just invalidates the salah, it doesn't invalidate the wudu. And tabassum, smiling, it neither invalidates the salah, neither does it invalidate the wudu. وَالْقَهْقَهَةُ فِي كُلِّ صَلَاةٍ ذَاتِ رُكُوعٍ وَسُجُودٍ. So laughing out loud, فِي كُلِّ صَلَاةٍ, in every prayer, ذَاتِ رُكُوعٍ وَسُجُودٍ, that consists of ruku' and sujood. So this is, the author is excluding the janaza prayer. There's no ruku' and sujood in the janaza prayer. So other than the janazah prayer, if one laughed out loud, whether he was praying with jama'ah or alone, if he was to laugh so much so that if there was about 2 or 3 people near him, they would be able to hear the sound of his laughter. If he laughed in such a manner, his salah will become invalid and his wudu will become invalid. Okay, and Sahib Nurul Idah has mentioned qahqahatu balighin. Okay, the laughter of a baligh yaqadhan, in the state, in a wakeful state. So in a wakeful state, if he was a baligh, the one who had reached the age of puberty, and he was awake and he laughed out so loud that not only did he hear the sound of his laughter, but a few people near him also heard the sound of his laughter. Or if there was no one near him, if there was to be people near him, they would hear the sound of his laughter. Then not only is his salah invalid, but his wudu is also invalid.